Hello, I'm Robert, and you're welcome here in my busy little shop. On today's episode of What's on My Workbench, the Bowie knife. The Bowie knife is back again. This Bowie knife, I don't know if you saw the original video, but it was in really bad shape. It had been left rusty. It was rusty enough that there was actually rust flaking off of it. I have a video of refurbishing the blade portion of this. I'll put a link to that and also to the handle video at the end. So this knife project has been interesting from the get-go. This knife belongs to my brother. My father purchased this, I think, in 1952 in Florida. And so it's had a long life. And I've been working on it here for some time. And today's the day that I make the sheath for this. And I've gone back and forth on what to make it out of. A couple options. One is I thought about doing just a tool pattern on it. I think that would look really pretty cool. I've got some snapping turtle leather here that is the tail section here. I thought about putting that on there, but that's a long ways from what the original knife sheath looked like. I've got it over here if you want to see it. This is the original knife sheath here. I cut it apart because I wanted to see what the condition on the inside was. I thought about trying to utilize some of this back in the other sheath, but it's really just not in very good shape, and it's pretty lightweight leather. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this section here of shoulders that's snapping turtle. And I've already made another knife sheath. It was an inlay, and I used the leather that was here. And so today I'm going to use right here to make a knife sheath. That will actually leave enough here for a wallet on this side and a second wallet on this side. So that would give me 2 knife sheaths and 2 wallets. I think that's pretty good out of an exotic leather. Now, this is Snapping Turtle Leather, and Snapping Turtle Leather Company sent me this this leather to utilize and see what I could make from it. And I know a lot of people, when they're looking at exotic leathers, they have an issue with, is it ethically harvested? Are we harvesting these animals just for the hides? And the snapping turtle leather is actually a byproduct of the food industry here in the United States. And so before they started making leather out of it, it was just being thrown away. So I think that's really a pretty cool way to, get more life out of the snapping turtle leather. So I'm going to make a knife sheath out of it. And I've got it set up over here on the workbench. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the design function part of it. Probably not a whole lot of time on the construction either. I want to keep it as short as possible, but I won't miss any of the important steps. So let's go over here on the workbench and we'll take a look at the pattern that I've been working on, and we'll go from there. I appreciate you taking time to be with this shop today. The first thing I did is I lined up here on the edge of the bench like this, and I marked where the blade is here at the back, and then where the tip is up here, because it looks like this tip is way off to one side. But I found that when I turned it around this way, lined it back up again, the tip's in the same place. The other thing, when you first look at it, and I'm sure you can see it, but it's a lot wider here than it is here. So what I needed to do was to have a wide enough opening into the sheath for this wider part. And what I came up with is that if I make it this way, and I shape the welt like this, the knife will fit in the sheath either way. That allows you to move it to the right or the left side and not have any, funny way that it fits up here. Because, you could have it like here or this. It would be cocked in the sheath. The way this blade is designed, it allows me to form what I think is the perfect sheath that can be reversed. The next thing is, what do I want to do about the shape? Do I want to have it follow this on the outside? And I think I like the look of what I would call a dagger sheath, that it'll come down, it'll be the same point, symmetrical all the way down here and come out to a point. So that's how I ended up drawing this pattern. So when I took this wider part down here from doing this and brought it back through here, it turns out that that is the width that I need to be able to insert and remove the sheath. So I think it's a perfect blade for doing it this way. The only thing that, someone could say, well, you've got extra space on either side here. It's not going to wiggle around in here because you have a pretty long throat into that area that is, I think it'll fit perfectly in there is what I'm trying to say. So once I figured out the shape that I wanted to have on the inside, then I wanted to figure out plenty of room for stitching on the outside. And I have made these before where I create this and then I'm like, I want a 1/4 inch welt, and I start drawing a 1/4 inch welt there. Next thing you know, when you go to do your stitching, it just becomes too tight. So what I want to do is I want to have plenty of room for my welt here. And what I've decided, the sheath is going to be made at 3 inches wide, but I'll probably end up at about 2 3/4 by the time I get all my edge sanding done and such. So the next thing I need to do is to figure out the top part of this knife sheath. And I'm just going to do a simple fold over here, or fold back like this for that knife sheath. So the leather will come up there and fold back somewhere about there. I wanted to limit how much hung down past the belt line, but I think the belt's going to go right about where this fold is now. So what I need for the back of it is a piece that's 3 inches. I'm going to give myself 1 inch down here to trim. We're at 13 3/4, or a 1/4, sorry. And then if I just do that fold over to say here, that's 3 1/4, so that's 13 1/2, 16 1/2 inches. So I need a strip that's 3 inches times 16 inches. That'll make up the back. The next thing I need to do is to figure out the welt. And the welt is going to be made from 2 6-ounce pieces of leather sandwiched together. If I had a 12 ounce, I could just use that, but I don't have any 12 ounce that I want to cut into. So I'll use 2 pieces of 6 ounce. I'll glue those together. I'll cut that welt out and we'll attach that to the back. And then we'll move on to the front of it. So let me get those pieces cut out first. And I don't remember, did I tell you, but the back is going to be made out of 8/9. And we're at 8 1/2 there. I didn't want to pull off the edge there and strike the countertop. So next I need leather for my welts. And I need, for the welt, I'm going to need 9 inches. Okay, now I have my pieces cut out here. This makes up the back of it. This makes up the welt when that goes together. The next thing I need to do is to start on the front side of it. And the front side of it's going to be a layer of this leather, a layer of the turtle leather. When I have that all together, I'm a little bit over 10 ounces. I think that makes a sturdy enough front of the leather. And then it'll have a border around it that makes the inlay part of this sheath. And I think instead of trying to get the exact same size, 3 inches, potentially, not getting in a line right, whatever the case may be, I'm going to make this slightly oversized. So I'm going to make this 3 1/2 inches. That'll give me a 1/4 inch to trim off of each side. So this is, if I didn't say it, it's 4 ounce leather. We're going to go 3 1/2 inches here. And this will make up the part of the body that the snapping turtle is going to be attached to. It'll be one of these. And then the other one will make up the window that the snapping turtle leather is going to be in. And I'll have to decide which one I like better. It's going to be either black or brown. I know, I haven't decided yet. I'm getting there. All right, so next I need to figure out the leather that I need. This is the leather I'm working with But I need to figure out the leather I need for my inlay. This inlay is, or the blade opening inside the welt is going to be 1 5/8 inches. Yep, 1 5/8 inches. And I want 3/8 of an inch on both sides, so I have plenty of it picked up with my stitching of this outer window of leather. It'll be leather across here as well, and then there. So it's going to be a true window. And so I want 3/8 on each. So if it's 1 5/8, then that would be, yeah, that would be 2 3/8. 2, that's a 2. And 3/8 inches of turtle. And I have the same thing I want here. I want to have 3/8 or a quarter, somewhere around there, of leather there and at the bottom. So if I make it 8 inches, then I'll have that. So let's put times 8 inches. That is thick up there. You can see how thick that is. I think before I trim this 1/2 inch off here, I want to see if I can skive that and utilize that. Like 17. And down here it's 3.5, which is probably about where I want to be with this part of it. I think I'm just going to keep working with this piece, and I can trim it down from here. It actually skives pretty easy. I'm just trying to take it easy and not get too far into any of it. I don't know, looks like I'm making a mess of it here. And I'm going to square this up. So here we've got this knife sheath here. I think it looks pretty good. I went ahead, trimmed this a little bit to mimic the point of the blade, mainly to help me visually keep track of which end is which, because I really like this heavy wrinkled area here for the top. And I'm a little bit long, and I decided I'd leave it a little bit long. And when I trim everything, I may have a little bit of edge of this down in here showing, but I can deal with that to get that slicked down. All right, so if you remember, I cut a piece of lining leather that this is going to get attached to. And if you're writing it down, once again, it's 4 ounce and it's 3.5 inches wide. And I need it to be, I'm going to say 9 inches long. And I want the smooth side to be inside towards the knife blade. So I'm going to flip it over like that, and we're going to laminate this here. And it's going to come down a little bit there for the top. The window leather will cover that up all the way around here. So what I need to do is to get it centered on here. And the window leather is going to get attached to this, so there's no reason not to apply contact adhesive to all this. So let's set up and do that next. I'm going to mark the center of this front piece here. Not crazy heavy, but enough where I can keep track of it. I'm just trying to make sure that I get things centered as far as my window goes in here. The leather in the center, if you remember, is going to be 1 5/8 wide. So that's 1/2 inch plus 5/16. So that's 3/4, 13/16 on either side of that line. So 13/16 on either side of that line. So that's going to be there and here. So that'll be that one. I've decided I'm going to go with black. I'm not too worried about these. You can get these lines to telegraph. If you're heavy-handed with this, you can get it to where it, you know, you'll see those creases, so to speak. So be careful about that. This is a softer leaded pencil. That's why I've been using that. Okay. Now that window is going to be 7 1/4 inches long. All right, so this is going to be 7 1/4 long. I'm talking out loud for myself probably more than anything. 7 1/4 is here. Now, that's pretty close. I think that's what I'll use. For this. And I'm not a fan of hard corners. One, it's hard to get them finished to where they look good. So I'll line up on the inside of these lines here. You could go smaller. Okay. I got an idea for that. So I'll go ahead and take my Ron's number 1. I'm going to do the finish on the edge here. And we'll get this all finished up. And then I have to decide again. I know I said I was doing black. Now I'm thinking brown again. Talk about indecisive. There we go. I'll burnish this edge here. It'll take a little bit of sand and not much. I want to get these corners to where you can't see I used a corner punch in or a round punch. And once I get those burnished up, then we'll go ahead and dye this. And I know I keep going back and forth. I think I'm just going to go black. I was thinking brown again, but I'll dye this black, and then I'll come back when we're ready to begin layering it up. I guess in the meantime, let's go ahead and layer these two together here. And they need to be centered in here. Let me put a couple pencil marks in here. In the center here. And then, I need to do both sides. Don't get ahead of myself. Switch to my softer lead pencil here. So I'll mark out here this direction, and then let's flip it over. Back on that center line there, we'll mark out this direction. I thought instead of trying to, use my pattern to lay this line out, that it'd be better to do it this way. So now that I have this established here, we know that this lobe here is bigger than down here. So I need to straighten that part of it out. And in the past, I've taken and just split this open. Maybe I should do that. I'm just trying to keep variables to a minimum. I think I'm just going to do that. All right, so let's cut this out next. It's easier if I start with a hole down here. So it'll be pulled apart like that up in here. Yeah, I think I like that. Next thing I need to do, see if I like one end of this better than the other. I think this is the better end for the fold over at the top. I can cut this roughly to length here, and I'll give myself plenty of room here. Clip this on the end here. Keep that from moving. A couple more clips for good measure. I like it. I'm just going to mark now. This will be the line that I apply the contact adhesive and the welt up to. Shifted. Sweet. Someone's probably saying right now, I thought you liked to have the smooth side out, and I do, but I want the smooth side showing up here where the handle's at. And I'm going to do black on the leather and I can slick that back down and get it really slick. So that's the reason why I'm doing it this way. I'll put another coat on there. I'll do both sides of my welt, and then we shall return. I want this to line up with that down there. Trying to get over it with you in my way. All right. And we'll line up here. Eyeball should be about 1/8 of an inch, and it is. We are on our line there. Oh yeah, I think that'll work. Time will tell, but I think that's good. Now we need to put these two layers together. Boy, I'm so happy that I put my pin marks on there and pulled this off, got looking at it, because I didn't have as much in the stitch line on the top here, up here, as I wanted, and I'm glad I didn't cut it too close down here, because I need to shift this down. I guess I placed it about where I wanted my stitch line. Well, that's not good. So I need to shift this down here about, well, about half that distance, so about 3/16 of an inch down. And get it on that line there. Come off there. Get my edges lined up. All right. I'll trim that off here in a minute. I think I'm liking where I'm at. 3/4 of an inch. Center it here. Yes, visually center it there. But it's got me thinking here. The my stitch line, I think I'll be okay here. It's just I worry a little bit about getting it to where it comes out inside here and it would cut those threads. But I think, because I'll be over here 1/16, so the distance between that, what was it, 1 3/4, so I'll be like 2 inches. And if I do 2 inches and it's centered on there, I shouldn't have any problem with that. Contact adhesive on here. I'm enjoying working with this turtle leather. I have 2 other knife sheaths that I'm working on. I'm not sure which order this video will come out, but they have the tails on them. So you may see it before this one or after this one. But those are coming out really cool too. And I'll be sure to share those with you. But like I said, I'm just not sure what order they'll be in. This part here, and it's, if you remember, it's wider than it, so I can't line up the outside edge. So I'm just visually centering it on this whole makeup. I'm thinking here before I attach it, is there anything else I need to consider? And All right. We're getting there. I'm going to establish my stitch lines here. Yeah, I probably should have stitched across here before I put it in here. It's going to be a challenge, but I've got some curved needles I can get in there if I need to do that to get in there. There'll be a stitch line across here, one of them. It comes around the window here, and then there'll be another stitch line out here about a 1/4 inch from it that comes all the way around but doesn't come across the top. Anybody guess why I'm not using a rubber mat underneath here? I'm going to tip this slightly towards the welt, just to make sure I don't make a mistake and come out there. I will use a awl to chase these out to the back. I'm just thinking if there's a reason to stitch this before I establish my next line, but I don't think there is. It's going to be a 1/4 inch outside of that. I'm trying to figure out whether to use the gauge here or if I should just use a ruler. That'll work. I may decide to align it a little bit with straight edge, but let's go with this first and see what it looks like. What I've decided in looking at it here is I want a little bit closer together on the stitch line, so I'm going to go on the inside of that line instead of centering on that line. That'll tighten up the pattern just slightly. Just looking here. Now I'm leaning the other direction to make sure I don't run into it with an edger or something like that. Not extreme. It probably looks more extreme on the camera angle than it is. Maybe 5 degrees or something. So I don't know if you saw the video of the other knife sheath that I made. And I made part of it slightly different than on it. So, I don't know. Maybe I would have gone back and done it that way, but I wanted to try it and see what it looked like. And what I'm talking about, when I created this one, I put an extra layer of filler underneath of this piece. My idea was to make it pop more. But I wasn't as excited about the edge of it as a result of that. But this one here, it does kind of look flat because it doesn't have it under there. So I don't know. Maybe if I was going to make this one again, I would put that extra layer under there. And what I did was I cut it about 1/8 of an inch smaller all the way around. And then I skived down the edge. And the idea was to make a dome of leather underneath of the snapping turtle, make it pop more. I'm just finishing up chasing these out with my awl, and the awl is just barely long enough. It's sticking out there 3/16 of an inch or so. And next I need to do my sewing. Let me get set up on that. I pulled this apart right here so I could get this started here, and I'll come this direction. When I get around to here, then I'll be able to go in that same hole, and that goes all the way through all of this, and I'll do a couple back stitches to tie it in. I think that'll give me the cleanest look is to start here. All right, a little better view from here. Let me get these needles evened up here. Okay. I did look for my curved needles. Spent about 10 minutes looking for them. I don't know where I've placed them. I've only used them like one other time, but they probably would have been handy here. But we'll manage it. The rest of this natural colored leather that you see will all be black when I get done here. And now we'll go through. Let me pull those tight. Go through all the way to the back now. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and continue stitching around this sheath on this inner line. And I'll come back when I'm ready to, either when I'm getting ready to start on the next one, or when I'm finishing this one up if I think about it there. Sometimes I get moving along and forget to push the record button again. I did a double back stitch here, and I don't know if you remember if I recorded it, but I did one over here as well to make that match. So all of the thread around here that's holding the turtle leather together in this window, that's all been installed. Knife fits in there fine either way. Yeah, my stitch line's not as pretty on the back as I typically on belts, but I don't feel too bad about it. I need to set up and do my next line of stitches, and they'll be pretty close together in the back because I leaned this way to make sure that I didn't have any issues coming out the side here. So I need to set up and start, and I'll do probably 2 back stitches here and finish 2 back stitches there, or vice versa. I may start over here and go this way. But either way, it's the same result. We'll complete a couple of back stitches and finish it off on the back side here. Same as I did when I started. I completed 2 complete back stitches. I chose not to do a stitch over here. Put it in comments if you make sheaths. Do you put it there or not? I just felt that maybe an errant placement of the knife would cut that thread. And I don't know that it really matters that much. Also, I hadn't finished burnishing this, and so I figured that would just kind of be in my way if I was going to burnish that, which, well, it's not if I'm going to. I will be burnishing that. My needles have gotten, over the last year, have gotten bent. And it's a little harder to line up on some of these thicker ones that way. One more to the back. And I'm going to just melt this off. I'm not going to tie a knot back here. I don't think it would come undone. And I'll have a large, somewhat large glob of thread here that I flattened out once I get it melted here. Here it is. Obviously, it's got a lot of black dyeing to do yet. Yeah, they're not beautiful on the back side, that's for sure. But it's done, and the back's going to be black. You won't be able to see it. Doesn't make me feel better about the stitches not being perfect, but it won't be as important. But I've got more sanding down here to do. I need to get my rounder out here and round these edges so that I can see what I need to do to clean up this reveal here on this stitch allowance. All right, I think what I want to do is I want to narrow this up, and I've been toying with the idea of an 1.5 wide strap or a 2-inch wide strap. The 2 seems too big, 1.5 is not quite enough. So let's go, I'm going to go 1 3/4 inches. So that's that is 1 1/4 inches less than the 3. Inch and a quarter less. So that's 5/8 on each side. I think 1 inch is too wide now. I need to see what will go well with a line 24 snap. I think I'll install it like that. Snap there. I could move down further, but I can't get all the way down here because of that taper, and I think the taper needs to be there. No way it can come out. All right, I'm going to go ahead and dye this and the sheath in all these areas here. I'll get it all dyed, and we'll be ready here for some of the finish on here. I think we're getting there. Okay, I'll set this aside, let it dry, and come back here in a bit. All right, I took a break from it, let the dye dry good. And I'm going to do my first initial burnish here on this leather on the side. And sometimes I'll start that burnish ahead of the dye on the edge. But I was going to be off the project here for a bit of time, so I thought I would get an initial burnish on here and see how much more sanding I'm going to need to do. So I'm not going to have you along unless you want to see a bunch of sanding, but I'll work my way through the different grits. I don't know, probably to about 400, and I'll touch up the dye again if I need to. Just a little bit of tan coat on this edge here. Just run the sponge one direction, continuing the, the idea of slicking it down and laying it down. Really, I think you could leave it just like that. But I'm going to go further here with it. I'll set this over there, let that dry, and then I'm going to come back and I'll continue my sanding on here. I'll take it up to about 800 grit, and then I'll come back when I'm ready to put my last coat of tan coat on these edges. But just one time on this back of a burnish, I think we're headed in the right direction. Okay, let's take a look here. Since you were last here, I let that tan coat dry, and then I sanded up to 800 grit, and I'm just now putting a little bit of a burnish on there to try to decide if I want to do more sanding. I think that looks pretty good. I'll just continue to burnish this, and then I'll put well, let me do that now. I'll put a coat of tan coat on here. Let me get this other side. I think it looks pretty good. I also did a little bit of edge work on the strap here, and I put my maker's mark on there as well. And let's dry fit this, see how it's looking. This will be the retaining strap with a line 24 snap on it, and I looked and I did have some nickel ones. I don't think brass would look right here. So I'll put a snap on here like that. So I think the next thing I need to do, I need to finish my clear coat on here, and then I'll do my assembly of my snap strap, easy to say, and then I will sew this in. I'll probably do 2 layers or 2 rows of stitching, one along this side, which will pick up this strap, and one here just to keep it all nice and tight looking there. Yep. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and install my snap on here and do this sewing, but I'll put a coat of tan coat on all of this to seal it up before. how often I say, well, I hope I have enough thread. I'm saying it to myself again. I thought I was being quite generous with the amount of thread that I pulled off the spool. There's probably enough here, but the leather is pretty thick that I'm going through, so it consumes the thread pretty quickly. And I'm using 0.02 thread. I don't typically use 0.02 thread, except for on, you know, special circumstances, kind of like this. I think I'm going to have to go out and back. I'll meet in the middle. It'll make a stronger ending there anyway, instead of having it at a stress spot here at the ends. Thought I broke the needle. I just slipped off the end of it here. Okay. I'll go around this end here one more time. I know it scratches the needle. These pliers are really old and they're really kind of polished on the inside, so probably didn't really scratch it much. Wasted a bunch of thread there, didn't I? Let's see what she looks like. Well, there you go. I tell you what, I think it turned out beautiful. I'll get it off to the rightful owner of it, and we'll find out what he thinks of it. This snapping turtle leather, you could tool it. There's lots of different ways you could have made this sheath. I like the texture of that snapping turtle leather, and I'm not sure if it shows it very well on there or not, but it's just really a beautiful leather to give another accent, and it really kind of ties in. Snapping turtles are really populous in Indiana, where my brother lives, and yeah, I'll get this sent off to him. And I want to thank again Snapping Turtle Leather Company for providing the snapping turtle leather. It's been a fun experience. I'll tell you, I don't make, and I've said it before, I don't make knife sheaths that often to where I feel like I am proficient at making them, but I think it just shows if you stick with it long enough, you'll come up with something that looks pretty good. I've got, as I said before, I have 2 other knife sheaths I need to make, and we'll see how those turn out. The rough side of the leather slicked down pretty good. I may take and polish this up a little bit more here. My threads on the back, you know, not bad, really considering the thickness of leather I was pushing through there. And like I think I said before, I'm not a big fan of snap retaining straps on a knife sheath because have a tendency to run into them with the blade and cut them. But I thought the way that I brought it down here a little bit further onto here to where it wants to push it open. I'm sure as it breaks in, it won't open up quite so far, but I think it's easy to knock them out of the way to keep from cutting those. We've probably talked this around the horn enough. I'll wrap up there. I do appreciate you taking time to be in the shop. Please like, share, and subscribe. But more importantly, I do hope you have a great day.